Hello, everyone. Welcome to Climate. Oh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Climate Voters Tonight. We're going to give folks just a couple seconds to join in here, and then we will get started. All right. Welcome back to Climate Voters Tonight. We have a super special program for you tonight. In fact, we are actually going to bring you the news live this evening for the first time ever, streaming this episode out on most of our social platforms. I'm your host, Peter Schleisman, and I am so thrilled to have all of our viewers tuning in for this episode. Today, we are going to be talking through our transition to clean cars, trucks, and buses. We'll talk about the benefits of transitioning to clean vehicles and how you can take action. Then we'll turn to Capitol Hill, where we'll give an update on the debt ceiling and why we, as an environmental group, are involved. And last, we'll highlight a recent event that featured partners and their work to uplift President Biden's clean energy plan. But first, the headlines. The largest clean energy infrastructure project in the U.S. is now under construction in New Mexico. SunZia's project will generate 3,500 megawatts of wind power. An accompanying transmission line will help supply customers in Arizona and California during evenings and peak hours when other renewable energy supplies are low. Now let's turn to Washington. As you know, Congress is gearing up to reauthorize the Farm Bill. We here at EDF Action want this Farm Bill to protect the historic investments in climate-smart agriculture that were part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Thankfully, Senator John Fetterman wrote a letter urging his colleagues to craft a farm bill that does just that. Please tweet at Senator Fetterman with using his handle at John Fetterman to thank him for advocating for climate-smart solutions while helping farmers produce the food that feeds our families. Now, if you're looking for a good book to read on environmental and climate justice, please check out Heather McTeer-Toney's new book, Before the Streetlights Come On. Heather is a former Mayor, Obama administration alum, and part of our EDF family. In the book, she explores the enormous and unequal burden Black communities face because of the climate crisis and how Black leaders are pushing the climate movement forward. The people most affected by climate change are best suited to lead the movement for climate justice, she writes. I highly recommend giving it a read. All right, our first segment tonight is going to be about how to get pollution from our cars and trucks off our roads and out of our communities. First, our transportation sector is the largest source of climate pollution, responsible for almost a third of our emissions. But it's more than just a climate problem. It's a health problem as well. Tailpipe pollution can cause cancer, heart, and lung diseases, and asthma attacks, as well as contributing to climate change. And this pollution puts everyone at risk. However, the health burden falls most heavily on Black and Hispanic communities, which are more likely to be located near highways, ports, and warehouses. Well, we've got some good news. The Environmental Protection Agency is taking action. EPA has proposed 2 new standards to reduce climate pollution from cars, trucks, and heavy-duty vehicles like delivery trucks, garbage trucks, and buses. These standards will move us further down the path towards zero emissions from new vehicles. In fact, the EPA estimates that with these standards, about 2/3 of the new cars and passenger trucks sold in America will be zero-emission vehicles by 2032. And so will up to half of new big delivery and freight trucks. This would be a historic effort to slash climate pollution. It would save lives, and it would confront the climate crisis head on. So tell the EPA to enact these standards. Please visit edfaction.org/clean trucks to take action today. All right, there's a lot in the news right now about how the US is quickly approaching our debt limit. So let's break it down. Extreme Republicans are trying to use the debt limit to take away many of the historic climate and clean energy investments you wanted. Congress needs to pass a bill to raise the debt limit, allowing us to continue paying the bills we've already racked up. Traditionally, this is done with little to no fanfare. But instead of doing the sensible thing, Speaker Kevin McCarthy and House Republican leaders last month unveiled a reckless plan. It gives us 2 options. Repeal job-creating investments that will reduce pollution, improve our health, make us more energy secure, and heal our planet. or default and fall into a recession, upending the entire global economy. It is crazy talk, pure and simple. Environmental Defense Fund President Fred Krupp told the Senate Budget Committee last week that tying the debt limit to the repeal of key provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act threatens our economy, our health, and our planet. He gave the example of the methane emission reduction program, which was included in the House Republican leadership's proposal. This program was put in place to reduce energy waste, cut pollution, and create family-sustaining jobs. It's all upside. But certain Republicans can't see that, or maybe better put, they won't see that. Just like they can't or won't see the 142,000 new clean energy jobs announced since the Inflation Reduction Act's passage. Roughly 2/3 of them are in their districts. Fortunately, this bill won't go anywhere. The Senate won't take it up, and President Biden won't sign it. What's scary is that the U.S. could default on its debt if the Republicans' fever doesn't break. That would leave the government without money to pay the military, federal employees, and beneficiaries of programs like Social Security and Medicare. Democrats want to continue the tradition of raising the debt limit with no strings attached. Frankly, Congress has a lot of history doing this, including 3 times under the previous administration. And they need to move quickly. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen recently said that we could hit our debt limit as soon as June 1st. That's less than 4 weeks away. Some House Democrats think they have a way forward to stave off economic disaster, at least for a little while. How? Through a wonky, little-used rule called a discharge petition. If 218 members vote for the petition, it allows for a vote on the House floor that the Speaker refuses to consider. This requires bipartisan effort, meaning 5 Republicans must join all 213 Democrats. It is possible. So let's make sure our leaders know that we cannot tie the historic clean energy and climate investments to raising the debt limit, and we cannot default on our obligations. Tell them how important this is to you by going to edfaction.org/debt ceiling. All right, moving on. We are 18 months away from the next federal election. I know that sounds like a long time, but on the election calendar, it really isn't. And it is going to be a big one. The White House and Senate are at stake, and there is the opportunity to elect a pro-climate majority in the House. So it's not surprising that everywhere you turn these days, you're hearing more about who is running for what office. We, of course, plan to keep you up to date with all the latest campaign news related to climate action. I'll start out with the obvious. President Joe Biden has announced his re-election bid. This wasn't the only announcement in the past 2 weeks, though. Senator Martin Heinrich, a climate champion, officially kicked off his re-election bid for Senate in New Mexico. And Representative Colin Allred is jumping into Texas's Senate race, hoping to send incumbent senator and climate science denier Ted Cruz packing for Cancun. And while some are announcing their re-election bids right now, we also have a few folks who won't seek another term. Maryland Senator Ben Cardin announced he wouldn't be seeking re-election. Washington Governor Jay Inslee also announced he wouldn't seek a 4th term. As I'm sure you all already know, he is one of our most important climate leaders. As we've covered in previous episodes, he was key to launching Washington's historic Cap and Invest program, considered the nation's most ambitious climate program. That's ending on a high note. Governor Inslee isn't just an effective climate governor, he's been influential in pushing other leaders to embrace climate action as well. He has a long climate record and a darn good one too. While we'll be sad to see him step away as governor, we know he won't stop fighting to make real and lasting climate progress. All right, last but not least, on April 28th, we hosted a virtual event. I hope some of you were able to tune in for it, but if not, we've got you covered. For our last and final segment for today, we're going to play a short highlight reel about the event. So without further ado, let's roll the tape.
Ingalls, Director of North Carolina Political Programs here at EDF. And I'm here with Vicki Lee Parker High, who's the Executive Director of the North Carolina Business Council.
The North Carolina Business Council was formed back in 2014 by a group of business owners who really wanted to bring the business voice to issues like environmental justice and other social issues that also impacted the business community, but they felt really lacked that business voice and that business perspective. So our mission is to connect, empower, and influence business leaders to build a vibrant economy that protects our natural resources. It benefits our communities and benefits all North Carolinians. One of the areas for us that intersect with our mission is looking at environmental justice and making sure that the business's story is told in that picture. So we hear a lot about, environmental injustice, and we hear about the communities that are impacted, but we don't always hear the businesses in those communities and how they're impacted by what happens when you have an area that's a high flood area, or an area that's has been repeatedly impacted by climate disasters. So we convened a number of roundtables where we have brought together our business leaders, particularly in those disadvantaged communities, and brought them together with our state leaders and with our congressional and national leaders so that they can hear what those experiences are like.
What are some of your goals specifically for 2023?
I think our top goals, number one, is letting businesses be aware of the resources that are out there. When we did a survey recently, we learned that a lot of businesses weren't aware of all the resources that's available to them. And I think it's because it's been decentralized. So part of what we've done is to work with our Secretary of State, work with other community partners to really help businesses find a central place to get information.
So the Biden administration has created a goal that 40% of the overall benefits of these federal investments will flow to disadvantaged communities. What are some of the challenges facing this goal, and how can we ensure that this goal is met?
The biggest challenge is understanding that it is a goal. It is not a mandate. It is a commitment, and it's an important one. But that means what we have to understand as business leaders is that now we have to hold agencies accountable. These fundings are going to go to build our roads, build our infrastructure, restore, water systems, all these aspects that the funding is going to go to. Businesses can be plugged into all parts of that. And we want to make sure that those businesses who participate, that is done so in an equitable way, that it's not just the same contractors getting the same contracts, but that there really is an effort to bring in new businesses, particularly our more diverse businesses, and making certain that that is top priority as we implement this real historic moment.
Hi there, my name is Tina Catron. I am the Michigan Grassroots Organizer for EDF Action, and I'm here today with Jane McCurry. Jane, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks so much, Tina. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Jane McCurry, and I'm the Executive Director of Clean Fuels Michigan. Clean Fuels Michigan is a nonprofit trade association dedicated to advancing the future of clean mobility here in Michigan.
So, Clean Fuels Michigan played a major role in getting the BIL and the IRA bills passed. Can you talk a little bit about the effort that went into this major accomplishment?
Yeah, it's so exciting. And I think first and foremost, it is a team effort. And actually last summer, we went to Washington, D.C. with EDF Action, and we were able to talk to Michigan's congresspeople about how important the clean mobility industry is to Michigan. More than 20% of Michigan jobs are tied to the automotive industry in one way or another. So we knew that this wasn't an industry that could be left out of those big energy bills.
So what are your organization's goals for this year and beyond now that we've made those big investments with the IRA? What's next?
Yeah, well, we need to make sure we're taking advantage of all of those investments. So we're really focused on how do we make sure that Michigan is harnessing all of those available incentives and opportunities. Additionally, we are advocating for additional state level incentives to complement those federal incentives. So Michigan has a budget surplus. Governor Whitmer proposed some really exciting items in her state budget. So we're making sure that those are signed into the budget when it gets signed in late June.
So the recently passed Clean Energy Plan has a combined $1,000,000 of investments for clean transportation. What effect do those investments have on your work, and how can Michiganders benefit from that?
There's so much benefit to be had here in Michigan. It really changed our work from being kind of on the defense in Michigan, trying to make sure that we're not creating undue regulations on the industry, to really being progressive on the offense on how do we harness all of these benefits for Michigan.
So how can folks on the ground get involved with the effort with the transition to zero emission transportation?
I would say look around your community and see how your community might be able to benefit from clean transit buses, from clean school buses. And then also, again, getting involved with your local organizations like EDF Action to be a good advocate on the ground and work with your community. I think it's going to be really important because, again, there's so many opportunities. And so we need good, excited people on the ground wanting to figure out how we take advantage of this.
Absolutely. And that collaboration that you mentioned is how we get that excitement level up and how we get people to really embrace this new net zero transportation initiatives.
Bill Clinton said, if I were y'all, you'd be the Saudi Arabia of solar.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Peckham, VAT organizer with EDF Action. I'm here on the ground in Las Vegas, and today I'm headed out to interview Louise Helbig, the Vice President of One Sun Solar. Now, come with me as we delve into the interview.
How is the recently passed Clean Energy Plan, so both the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act, impacted your business? How do you see it impacting your business in the years to come?
The wonderful thing about the Inflation Reduction Act is that 30% tax credit. The other thing that people are not really familiar with too is that there is, through the Department of Agriculture, a grant for renewable energy called a REAP grant. And that has historically offered you 25% of the cost of a system for a business, a for-profit business in a rural area, writing them a check saying, here you go, 25%. Wow. But wait, there's more, because in the Inflation Reduction Act, they actually re-looked at what they could do to help more rural communities. So they actually raised it to 40%. 40% of the cost of the system will be given back to you in a grant.
All right, that is going to do it for us tonight at Climate Voters Tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we really appreciate you taking the time to tune in. Please go ahead and visit edfaction.org/questions if you are interested in submitting questions or ideas for future episodes. Climate Voters Unite.